All right, at exactly 3 minutes past 6, this is the Morning Cafe. Good morning, karibu sana. My name is Fred Ndimuli, na kama kawaida, ile kahawa unakunywa ni moto kiasi gani?
Oh yes, you can't after watch pia mimi.
It looks nice.
Unafanya mimi sina kitu ya kuangalia.
Unakaa hivi unaangalia.
Sasa inabidi niangalie simu.
Tafuta mpoa.
Sasa mpoa na watch mingilia wapi. Anyway, karibu sana. It is a Tuesday, terrific Tuesday, Biashara Tuesday, and Matters Innovation coming up your way from around 8 a.m. But before that, Matters State of the Nation and a lot in the headlines. We'll be taking a look at, first of all, tuanze na kuangalia what to expect in, well, Daily Nation iko hapo.
Well, where is Uhuru's 1.1 billion shilling funding? That's a big question, and that's the biggest talking point today. Hii pesa ilienda wapi?
Iko wapi?
Sio sisi tunauliza.
Ni gazeti inauliza.
Kanzi aliuliza jana, magazeti anauliza this morning. Where is the money? Show us the money.
The same Uhuru turns to God. Ruto magnified.
Okay. And you know this only comes like 2 days after the deputy president said that kuna challenges za transportation. So what are they saying? There's a narrative being created here. That's the front page of the Standard.
Let's take a look at other local dailies before
tuangazie Taifa Leo hapa. Wanasema Uhuru alia kuteswa na serikali. Mateso. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Let's go to the Star, we see.
Ruto Gachagua allies in big dilemma. They stick
something totally different, but at least they've sustained the Gachagua discussion because it's also a big discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Star has that. But back to Uhuru. He features on the front page of the People Daily. Just respect me. Uhuru tells Ruto, heshima tu. Najua ile sema tu. Ile kitu nataka tu.
Tushirikiane tu.
Okay, let's take a look at Matters Business. Pending bills, nightmare. State allocates zero budget. You can imagine this. For those people who've been waiting for the budget process, just to know if at all they'll finally get paid for the services they supply to government and county governments, you're sahau for now.
Oh, yes.
All right. Those are the Kenyan dailies. Let's cross the border into Uganda and see what's the big news there.
MPs detained over corruption racket, and we were informing you yesterday the decision by the DCI Yahuko in Uganda to actually go for some of these MPs, and they said detectives had by last evening taken into custody 3 legislators as wide-ranging investigations into budgeting corruption involving Parliament and Finance Ministry officials take shape. So the arrests come on the back of President Museveni promising action during State of the Nation address, which happened, was it last week? Yes.
That's a Daily Monitor. Still in Uganda, we take a look at the other daily. That's the New Vision, why 3 MPs were arrested. This is the biggest discussion in Uganda today, in Kampala. The arrest of those 3 MPs over corruption allegations. That's the New Vision. And I think it occupies almost 3/4 of that page.
Oh, yes. Imagine seeing this in Kenya. At MPs due to corruption, they've been arrested. There's a big story there.
The last time we saw arrests over corruption, I can't even remember. But that's a Kenyan narrative. We moved on from that.
Yeah.
Corruption is part of what we do.
So brick and mortar.
We cross the border into Bongo, Tanzania. Gazeti la Mwananchi, habari kuu pale, RC adaiwa kumlawiti mwanafunzi. Lo, habari gani hii sasa? RC mzima. That's a regional coordinator. Yeah? Ni wa kutoka mikoa ya kanda za Ziwa. Mwanafunzi ni wa chuo kikuu jijini Mwanza. Kimbilia polisi kulalamika, uchunguzi waanza, vyanzo vyaeleza ilikuwa siku ya tukio ilifanyika katika maegesho ya baa maarufu. Habari ya kutatanisha pale.
And finally, on the front page of The Citizen, before we take you to another African country, how mortgage interest rates can be made more affordable. Okay. Oh, yes. Interestingly, though.
This is an interesting conversation. This is the kind of conversation you'd want to see on a Kenyan daily.
Oh, yes.
If at all, they can be talking about interest rates and how they can be brought down, mortgages and stuff like that. But in Kenya, we talk about other things altogether. Well, there's a big piece of news happening elsewhere in Africa, and this is in Malawi. And yes, this morning in Malawi, why is it not cooperating? Yes, in Malawi, there's a plane that disappeared carrying the deputy president. And we just want to look at some of the dailies in Malawi this morning. And The Nation, this is a paper from Malawi. It talks about nation on edge.
Allow me to zoom in.
Yes. And it shows the aircraft that was carrying the VP and 9 others. The aircraft that carried the VP and 9 others
is similar to this one.
Is similar to this one. and it's still missing.
They say by midnight yesterday, midst remained of the fate of Vice President Saulos Chilima and 9 others aboard a Malawi Defense Force aircraft that went missing soon after failing to land at Mzuzu Airport. So
and they say that the president, that's President Chakwera,
yes,
says he's frightened as the search continues. That's the Nation from Malawi. We have the other one, the Daily Times.
The Daily Times. They say a nation in anxiety as Chilima's plane goes missing.
Yeah.
So that's the latest in Malawi when it comes to the missing plane, and the Vice President Chilima was on board among together with 9 others. Oh yes, so we'll be following up on this and telling you how things will be unfolding.
All right.
Oh yes.
Let's come back to Nairobi and take a look at the traffic situation. Things much closer home.
I've got to say, African dailies look very interesting.
And you realize they have almost the same name.
Oh yeah,
Nation,
the Daily
Times. A quick look at the traffic situation in Nairobi. Major tributaries into the city center look more or less okay. Today, even Jogoo Road looks nice. Not much of red. I can see bits of yellow here and there, meaning it's smooth. At least the traffic is flowing along this major tributary. That's from Buruburu all the way to the city stadium roundabout. So if you're using Jogoo Road today, not really much of a problem as at now, which is 10 minutes past 6.
And it's quite interesting to see Jogoo Road looking that clear.
Yes, yesterday there was a dark red, and it was a long one there at Makadara. Of course, Pangani, that's the pressure point. This is usually a problem. It's a bottleneck for both Kiambu Road and Thika Road getting into town around Pangani interchange. That one is building up. You can see it's already, some vehicles have stalled. It's what they call happy hour. They block one road, open for the other. So, but watu wa Kiambu wanaelewa. The other problem is further up on Thika Road, just before you get to Allsops, between around Garden City Mall. Yes.
Just after Safari Park.
Yes, there seems to be a problem heading towards town along Thika Road, meaning if you're using that road, there will be, expect a bit of a slowdown there just before Allsops, but after that, it's smooth all the way up to Pangani. So yes, those people using Thika Road, there's an incident there on Thika Road just before, around Garden City there. All the other major tributaries into town look good. Mombasa Road is looking good all the way into town. Nothing to report there. So is Langata Road. Langata Road all the way to T-Mall, and even Bagathi Way is looking good. So is Ngong Road and Wayaki Way as well into town. Traffic situation this morning is looking good. The only trouble points, Pangani as always, and Thika Road. So Thika Road, any motorists using that road do expect a bit of difficulty. Kidogo tu, but nothing much to worry about.
Right. Let me update you on the weather in around 3 areas to take a keen look at in case you're thinking about traveling these particular areas. We start with the Ukambani region, Uko Kitui, and see. So I'm taking a look at Kitui because, we're getting into the cold season, but let's see how particular areas like this that always have the hot temperatures and high temperatures are going to be looking like for this day. So it is 16 degrees Celsius in Kitui, and sunny intervals are going to be expected getting into the day. So the highest temperatures for today is 27 degrees Celsius.
Fairly warm. This is normal. I don't think your baridi imefika Kitui sana.
Tuone kwingine all the way to Namanga and see how, it's just fairly the same. 0% precipitation, chances of it raining today is fairly normal again, 27 degrees Celsius for the same. In case you're thinking of going for a road trip today all the way to Namanga.
It's Tuesday, man.
Kuna watu kama.
Okay.
Yes.
Go to Nairobi?
The people who are not bound by days of the week. 14 degrees Celsius right now. It's a bit cold.
Yes, it's a bit chilly in Nairobi.
Yes, and the highest temperatures that you'd expect today is about 22 degrees Celsius. Jana kulikuwa na kijibaridi.
Even 22 degrees Celsius is still a bit cold.
Oh yes.
So yes, keep warm.
Yeah.
Wear sweater. I think wale wanauza sweaters now, they're doing booming business and trench coats and stuff like that.
Na scarves, tutafute hiyo biashara kidogo tu. Oh, yes. Let me update you on what to expect on our news diary. There are quite interesting highlights for today, getting into the Senate first of all. So Senate Majority Leader, that is Aaron Cheruiyot, will be leading a special sitting in the Senate, and they'll be discussing, well, among others, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill for the National Assembly. I'll be telling you all about that. But Fred, this is quite interesting for today. So today is the inaugural International Day of Play. So this is after the United Nations General Assembly in March this year proclaimed that the day will be marked annually. So Kenya
International Day for Play.
Yes. So Kenya is among the 13 core group countries that championed for resolution, with the support of 138 countries that co-sponsored the resolution. So it is focusing on children and the ability and the importance of children to actually just play. Yes. So this is actually a call to all schools out there. Let children play. Let wakikuja shule, anza PE from the first lesson all the way to the last lesson.
Cancel maths.
Cancel maths.
But when the PE.
Cancel science.
Will never happen.
Oh, yes. That is something to expect for today. And speaking of playing, Kenya versus Ivory Coast coming up today.
A big match happening today.
Oh, yes.
Something to look forward to.
Will be happening at the Bingu National Stadium. This is for the World Cup 2026 qualifying matches.
Bingu is still in Malawi?
Yes.
A lot of news coming from Malawi. So we'll be keeping tabs. Remember, there's a piece of news on the Vice President's whereabouts. And now Kenya playing Ivory Coast on Malawian soil as well. So yes, we'll be keeping tabs on Malawi the entire day.
Most definitely. Right now, though, let's get today in history.
On this day, dozens of suspected jihadists attacked a frontier post on Ivory Coast's border with Burkina Faso before dawn, killing around 10 soldiers.
I'm looking at the Standard newspaper, and on page 3 they talk about food. Nimeona jamaa ameshika ugali
Na managu
na
pale.
managu amefinya hivi nikasikia njaa.
Ni kitambo ni fiti.
Experts warn on high risk of toxic food in city. That's a story that you need to read. It's on page 3 of the Standard. Toxic food.
yes.
Food chain plagued by systematic failures that have eroded consumer protection. And vendors are operating in extremely unhygienic environments. With makeshift stalls located next to open sewers and roadside drainage. I know that trend of kwenda kwa kibanda.
Oh, yes. Kibandaski.
Kibandaski. Just make sure you're so sure. Yes. Toxic food in city. That's not the big headline though. That's just on page 3. The big story on the front page of the Standard and on most other dailies this morning is Uhuru turns to God in Ruto money fight. Pay me my dues, he says. Asking God to save us all, former president says he has been forced to foot his bills, contrary to the law. He wonders why State House has not remitted money to his office yet. It is in the budget. The story is on page 4. It says the lack of access to a rightful budget allocated has forced retired President Kenyatta to run the office from his pocket, paying for all the bills the office incurs. This is according to the retired president's spokesperson, Kanze Dena. And a photo of the retired president on the front page. Uhuru's name back on the front pages. The other story given prominence on the front page, reject punitive taxes. Hustlers plead with MPs. There was a conference yesterday at the KICC as the National Assembly's Committee on Finance and Planning finalized public participation sessions on the finance bill and the budget making process yesterday, and I will be talking about that as well. On the Financial Standard, that's the same story. State falls short on budget promises. So for a lot more details on budget making promises from the Finance Act of 2023 to where we are today. You can read the pull out, the Financial Standard. On the top strip of the Standard, secondary schools to lose 20 billion shillings thanks to CBC.
Wow.
You know what's going to happen? Because now, next year, we don't have Form 1s. Yeah? Because the last class of KCP was last year.
Last year.
So next year, they do not expect any Form 1 intake. And there's still that debate on where CBC grade 9 should be domiciled. Is it primary school or secondary school?
Yeah.
So they actually could miss out on a whole year of school fees. Interesting. And the international scene, Macron, big gamble on snap polls. In business, focus now on flood effects in mini budget. And finally, Starlets inches away from glory. That's a bigger story as far as sports is concerned. It's on the back page of the Standard. 90-minute stand between junior Starlets and World Cup sport. The Kenya juniors thrashed Burundi 3-0 in the qualifiers played on Sunday. And Coach Cheche, Mildred Cheche, has rallied all Kenyans to show up on Sunday for the vital second leg. So that is as far as the Starlets are concerned. Just one game and they're the World Cup.
Oh, yes.
And then on the other hand, we have World Cup qualifiers for the main national team, that's the Harambee Stars. Harambee Stars out to stop unbeaten elephants. It is quite a mountain to climb. The Harambee Stars remain cautiously optimistic ahead of today's 4 p.m. crucial 2026 World Cup qualifiers match against Ivory Coast, despite current developments. All right, and that's a big story in as far as sports is concerned. That's the Standard today.
Right, I was listening to the Harambee Stars coach, Ngin Ferret, akisema things in Kenya, things can really be easy, but then they can still be hard. So we to see how...
Today things are elephant.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
On the front page of Daily Nation, they're asking, where is Uhuru's 1.1 billion Kenya shillings funding? That's a big question there. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday demanded to know the whereabouts of funds allocated to his office in the past 2 financial years, even as he accused State House of frustrating him and his family from accessing the constitutionally sanctioned benefits in ongoing feud with his successor. The court matters budget, office, vehicles, as well as security. That's a big story there, as well as other dailies. At the bottom, inside ADC's 500 cash shillings per acre land lease scam.
And that's a very disturbing story if you actually read the details.
They say Agricultural Development Corporation leased land to an unnamed investor at more than 10 times below market rate of 500 cash shillings an acre annually.
Yes.
Underlining the blatant abuse of government property dealings with business people. Ile inanikumbusha ulikuwa unapita karibu na Kemsa unaambiwa excuse kuja unataka tenda. Other stories on the left scroll, education matters is reflected on the back page. We'll be getting to that. They say GSS tutors sacked 2 days after calling off strike. And party war of words, then cruel death. Sad story of teenager Beth Wambui. That is on page 3. But a very interesting story on that is on page 13. Ile Kamata Fridays. So that's still on as court throws out petition by lawyers' lobby. So they say the High Court has dismissed a petition seeking to block the police from arresting suspects on Fridays and keeping them in custody over the weekend. And the lawyers just want to make sure 24 hours after ube arrestiwa umetoka.
How do you expect the court to say, okay, fine, now you won't be arrested on Fridays? Sometimes you expect too much.
Actually looking for more. Yeah, so they say, according to Justice Lawrence Mugambi, it is not enough to merely cite constitutional provisions and fasten some facts onto them. So chunga sana. Kamata Friday is still on. Be careful on what you do on a Friday. That is Daily Nation. Unaangalia Business Daily.
Wacha niangazie maswala ya biashara. Pending bills nightmare. This is a Business Daily now. And this will worry many people who've supplied government. Pending bills nightmare as state allocates zero budget. Treasury goes against promise to start settling arrears. Suppliers and contractors owed more than 631 billion shillings. And you know, once this budget making process is done, You have to wait until next year for another budget making process to know if at all they will consider to include some of this allocation for pending bills. And remember, people have actually lost their homes and property after supplying government. Businesses holding out for payments from the government for working capital are set for tougher times after the National Treasury did not allocate funds for the payment of pending bills, running into hundreds of billions of shillings in the latest supplementary budget, despite earlier promises to do so. Wow. Sad state of affairs. Auditor flags ADC's puzzling 500 shilling per acre land leases. Yes, that's the same disturbing story on the front page of the Daily Nation. State-owned ADC leased land to an unnamed investor at more than 10 times lower than the market rate. So, listen to this. The ADC leased 15,000 acres in Rumuruti, Laikipia County, to an unnamed tenant in 2015 for 15 years, meaning this lease will end in 2030. The Auditor General revealed in a deal that will cost taxpayers more than 1 billion shillings over the period. Wow. And you'll never see this. It's rare to see such revelations on the front page. But then again, the Auditor General has done so many revelations, but we don't see anything happening.
I mean, just yesterday, the Auditor General talking about one particular GAF, how an intern was just interviewing the employees there.
Yes, senior employees of the fund.
Senior executive employees there.
Yes. We need to see more people arrested on the front pages like in Uganda. Still on the front page of the Business Daily on the ticker, more highlights. PSVs to raise fares if new car taxes pass. Yes, especially that motor vehicle tax. Pesa tu italipwa tu na wananchi.
Kama kwenda from town
matatu, yes.
From Nairobi to Rongai ni kama 150, sasa itabidi unalipa 300.
Yes.
Ni kama unaenda Naivasha.
Rongai it's farther.
Ni diaspora huko.
Diaspora. Kenyan CEOs to fire 370,000 staff in 2024. This is more pain for employees. More CEOs plan to trim their workforce this year. These are new, according to the CBK. This is a survey by the CBK. No one else. CBK, citing declining business performance. Elsewhere, Safaricom rollover charges breach Hustler Fund rules. So Safaricom overcharged Hustler Fund borrowers to the tune of 368 million shillings. And finally, retired civil servants suffer 2.1 billion bond paper losses. A pension fund for civil servants suffered a 2.1 billion shilling hit in paper losses in 2 years on investment in securities. You know, sometimes you read these headlines and you can actually get depressed. Anyway, moving on swiftly, that's the Business Daily.
From BD to PD, that's People Daily on the front page. There's a couple of stories there, but the big one is just respect me. Tafadhali tu niheshimu. That's Uhuru telling Ruto, they say persecution in an unprecedented escalation of tension between the president and his predecessor. The son of Jomo demands the dignity that comes with his status as former head of state. And I love how all and most dailies have used the former president, donning that shirt. Yes.
Is it the same one? I think it's just the same design. All his shirts look the same. Even I'm looking at the standard. It's not the exact same shirt, but
same design.
Design ile.
Yes. Other highlights, pale juu, TSC cracks the whip on intern teachers. This conversation is back on the front pages. On the very top scroll, how new rules threaten hotels. Can read into that and see if you're a hotelier or really interested in all that. On the left, the finance bill hearings. Yesterday was the last day of these hearings. And they say experts warn on tax policy. Something else interesting to read, how medication help us cope with the world.
Meditation.
Meditation. Maswala medication that we'll be getting back to People Daily on page 10, Star News Tech. But then we can take a look at the Star and see what is happening there. Imesema haitaki vidole zangu, but then we can have the Star for you. There it is, Ruto Gachagua allies in a big dilemma.
Yes, no one wants to comment and take sides publicly, fearing reprisal. It's a hot potato, yeah? Most believe to side with president, but insiders say Gachagua's backers favored by voters. So, siasa kuwa moto. It's boiling nicely.
Boiling nicely.
As Gabriel Oguda would say. Wacha ichemuke, wacha iendelee kuchemka. Other stories given prominence because this story has actually occupied the entire page, only left space for 3 more highlights. How rebellion trapped man in double lifestyle. Elsewhere, woman change maker wins award in America. And finally, no more taxes. Wanjiko's wish for 2024-2025 budget. This is the biggest discussion this week. It is budget week. We cannot avoid that. I wanted us to look at Taifa Leo because I think we missed it.
And even as we cross over to Taifa Leo, it's interesting how the Star has focused on these papers being a Tuesday.
Yes. Uhuru alia kuteswa na serikali. Habari kuu pale, na tutazingatia habari hii tukiendelea kudiscuss pamoja na wageni wetu leo. Do stand by for that. So now let's move on to the cartoons.
Muda umeyoyoma.
Muda umepita kweli kweli. On page 15 of the Daily Nation, matters UDA and what's happening with the wrangling between the head of state and his deputy, as well as party matters. And we have, on one hand, someone watering very young babies in baby uniform, yellow, and you can tell who and who is there. And someone else holding a big pair of scissors. And they say this is a UDA farm. We nurture young leaders. So someone is trying to nurture young leaders. The other one is trying to cut them short. That's what's happening on the cartoon on Daily Nation.
Oh, yes.
On page 14 of the Standard, the cartoon focuses on the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. And we have 2 images of the same president. In early 2022, he says, we have no intention of invading Ukraine. Well, we know what happened after that. Now, today, he says, we are not interested in attacking NATO. Given the kind of history we know, we're not sure. But then the commentator here says, we have every reason to believe you, sir.
Tsa.
Yeah.
America tsa.
Ruling.
On, oh yes, on page 10 of People Daily, Stanos take 2 gentlemen in one pair of pants, and they have 2 different arrows. All of them are just playing. Is it, how do you call that?
A violin.
Yes, the violin.
They're playing music, but it's the same person playing different kind of tunes.
Oh, yes.
They're not in conformity, yet they're supposed to be working together. Wow, that's just talks about the cracks between the head of state and his number 2. Stano's take today. All right, we'll be taking a look at these discussions with my guests this morning. After the break, we do expect Kabando, former MP for Mukurweini, to be in studio, Titus Lote, MP Kachiliba, as well as Faraba Alim, MP Dadaab constituency, to be joining us for these discussions. You can be part of the same as well through our social media on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. On X, you can also tag me at Freddy Ndimuli is my X handle.
Oh yes, 2047 is our SMS number, 0793 267 279 is our WhatsApp number. Imekata kuload the pictures vizuri, but then we'll be giving you all this for the panelists coming up later on. Yes, finally imeamua ifunguke sa vizuri.
All right. So yes, later on also a lot more coming, today being Biashara Tuesday. Do stand by for better conversation after 8. Matters?
Matters insurance. What do you really need to know when it comes to importance of insurance? These are going to be our guests for today. Tackling matters insurance. Do you have any questions regarding this conversation? Sema tena ivuke.
I think because of time, let's just move
on. Sawa.
Yes. Time now for a break. We'll be back with a lot more. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that, so when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO and the rest of. What point are you a wife? The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business. It's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that, so when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO and the rest
At
of...
what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata mbao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. Time for us to take a look at the state of the nation. Very huge discussion points today. Of course, key among them, the finance bill and discussions around the budget making process. This being the budget week, a lot of expectations in Parliament. Yesterday we had the very last opportunity for Kenyans to actually share their views with the National Assembly's Committee on Finance and National Planning. The other key conversation, and which features on all the front pages, has to do with the retired president's woes. Uhuru Kenyatta complaining about his office not receiving budgetary allocations, and we'll be looking at that as well. To help us look into this, we're privileged to have in studio this morning Farah Maalim, MP Dadaab. It's good to have you in studio again.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
And Kabando wa Kabando, former MP Mukurweini. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
We're still hoping that Titus Lote and Pika Chiliba will be joining this conversation. But before that, before we even come to Kenya, there's some very disturbing news coming from Malawi. If you've heard, a plane carrying Vice President Saulos Chilima is still missing more than 10 hours later. President Chakwera has ordered immediate search and rescue. This is overnight, and it goes to raise more concerns about the transportations of VIP. We've had our own challenges here in Kenya in the recent past, and then we see such a story happening in a nation within our region. This is concerning Farah Maalim, the kind of even equipment that's available for VIPs in Africa.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. We really need to re-examine a lot. Quite a bit of it is due to the fact that we have some of this very old, completely out of, not in tune with today's challenges in terms of the weather itself. And that also has a lot to do with the endemic corruption in that sector. One area where there's no accountability is the military procurement sector. Because there's no accountability, we would end up getting some second-hand. You remember sometimes back we got second-hand helicopters from Jordan.
Yes.
Which were refurbished and sold to us for a bomb. And that's because people in authority are so corrupt that they make an effort to make a coin wherever they can. And in the process, they compromise on these things. And in the process also, very senior people get caught in this. We've had so many right now. I mean, helicopter crashes. This is the second time we have a very high-ranking senior person in Kenya, third time, perishing in a helicopter. If you remember very well, we had Ismail Chelanga.
Yes, PC.
PC, yes, PC, who died in Marsabit, crashed with a helicopter. And then we have the former vice president and a very senior minister at that time. And literally, somebody, if he was around today, the political landscape of this country would be different. George Saitoti. George Saitoti, who also died in a helicopter crash. I'm talking about helicopters. And then, of course, now we had this, our own CDF, Chief of Defense Forces, perish in, perish in. And then when you go to the wider airplanes, the late Bunaya Godana, you remember, perished with everybody who was in the plane. And the entire leadership, political leadership of Marsabit was wiped out in one stroke. All the MPs, the 6 of them were in that plane. And one of them was, of course, somebody who is irrepressible. You know, each one of them is irrepressible. But Bunaya Godana was a very unique mind and a very close friend of mine. And it's been. Then, of course, a little later, we lost Kipkali Akones. And you know, I haven't said this on TV, but I'm going to say it today. I was supposed to go with Kipkali Akones on that trip.
On that same flight? On
that same flight that day, and Lona Laboso. And then the last minute, Marenda called me and told me, my brother, I'm going to be busy with something else. I want you to...
Oh, you are the deputy speaker?
I was the deputy speaker. Yes. I want you to chair the afternoon session. And you know, those days, things are very, very tricky. So you couldn't leave it to anybody else. It's just the two of us, although we have a speakers panel. He said, you have to share this. And then the last minute, I told him, look, my brother, I have to chair this. And you know what? I was on the chair, the plenary of the parliament.
When you received
And he was in parliament.
We were together.
We were together in parliament. And Eugene Wamala walks to me and tells me, have you had the sad news? No. He said, Kipkali Akones and Lona Laboso are gone.
Wow.
You get my point?
Yes.
And also a very, very close brother and friend.
And
for me, so what Africa in Africa, we really have to. A lot of these things have got to be.
Yes.
It's a serious conversation.
Yes.
It's very technical, no doubt about it.
Yes.
And but at the same time, it's a serious conversation that the masses of this continent would not want to hear something like that again. Yeah.
And Bonakabando, it's something that worries, given the fact that even when the president was in the US, discussions around getting more of the same helicopters that we've had for the military was one of the agenda there. And there's a lot to be said about VIP transportation, including the vice president's wars. He talked about him having challenges in moving from Nairobi to Nakuru on Sunday. And he talked even about the challenges about the weather, that he had to be delayed between Longonot and Naivasha for about 2 hours because the equipment he was using could not cross that weather situation. It is definitely something worrying. On the front page of The Nation in Malawi this morning talks about Nation on Edge, and they have an image of the kind of aircraft that the vice president was traveling in. It looks not modern by any standards. What is your assessment of this situation?
Thank you very much, and glad to be here again with my colleague Farah. Issues of accidents are a little tricky, particularly when they involve senior people, political people, and you know, the sensitivities around the cause makes people inhibited, so we don't discuss a lot in terms of details. But as he has very well said, the question of quality, you know, the rest of the world, the developed world, does business with the political class in Africa. And one of the most sensitive areas is the military, is the security area, where audits are limited, sources of and types of equipment for security are undisclosed. And so you go to a lot of deals So some of these equipment could be donated in quotes, but quid pro quo, there's something else to deal with. So it's an area to look at. There's nothing free. You shouldn't allow another country to dispose of, because really these donations are not of clean, new equipment.
Mutumba.
It's Mutumba.
Mutumba.
It's Mutumba. So why do they dispose of? From their military to your military. You know, so you'd rather have 2 good ones than 10. Then the second issue is also, you know, question of power. Again, you don't discuss with a lot of weight because you have no evidence, but you can be misunderstood. But truly out here, people still say thought he was killed. It wasn't an accident. Even how it was handled. You know, we heard about his telephone where it was being found, you know, the subsequent issues. There was something to do with maybe succession.
Definitely succession.
Did John Garang, the hero from South Sudan, how did they vanish? How did Samora Machel perish? So, you know, again, the investigations, the story is out there. So it's something to ponder for developed countries. But back home also, I think there is misuse of air travel. We should look, though accidents are sometimes, you know, accident, ajali haina kinga, that you cannot prevent. But of course, that's a saying, you know, the responsibility of the Ministry of Transport, the National Transport Safety Systems in Kenya is about preventing and reducing accidents on the road. They can be reduced. We have seen an effort in the past where that has been done. I think the allocation of choppers to government officials and this hopping from meeting to meeting, and they are not state functions. You know, when you are going to church,
even short distances from Nairobi to Nakuru, the preference for a flight instead of just using the road.
And this came with the Sky team from 2013. Kibaki wasn't in the air permanently. Neither was Moi permanently in the air permanently.
Or Kenyatta never went.
Kenyatta never even.
Never took any.
Never traveled out of the country.
By air. He never traveled by air.
Yeah. Okay, he was always around here, you know, and sleeping in his...
going to Mombasa also, he used to go by road.
By road, and also sleeping in his Gishagi home in Ishaweri every day, rather than sit house. So he brought up the children in Gishagi. That's why Uhuru speaks fluent Kikuyu. So I think there's so much wastage, even as we talk and we are concerned about that. You know, on Sundays, how much money is being spent just to chopper around political figures from this church to another? Some of them attending 2 or 3, carrying money in money bags, and this money is not audited. It is not on check. It is not deposited straight to a bank account. It's just being given on white, brown envelopes in church, as we saw on the last Sunday and other Sundays. So, the concern on equipment, and sorry for what could be happening to the Vice President in Malawi, our great country of Africa. But also, as we discuss this, let's Kenyans not lose sight of the corruption in the security contracting
sector,
and also corruption in usage of military and police equipment, and the corruption in misappropriation of those equipment to correct politicians in order to do pure politics that have nothing to do with the state matters.
Okay. And it's important to note also that such accidents are not just confined to Africa. It's only last month, on the 19th of May, that an Iranian Air Force chopper carrying the president of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, crashed.
That was high-stake war.
Yes, in East Azerbaijan, and killed the president. So it happens. We are in a season where air travel is getting riskier, yet the equipment and the technology is supposed to be improved.
Do you remember, just a few years ago, how a military general Iranian military general was killed.
Soleimani.
And it was, the Americans displayed the actual,
the manner in which he
was massacred with his whole battalion, you know. So that's why I said politics and political air
may not just be accidents. Anyway, let's move on from that discussion and come back home, discuss something that is not featuring on the dailies, but we have to talk about it briefly, and I mentioned it, and that is what the Deputy President talked about on Sunday, about his own transportation issues. And this is away from what's happening in Malawi. The Deputy President arrived an hour late to an event where his boss was attending, and that is something that we are yet to witness. He gave his apology and cited transport challenges as part of his issues. He was moving from Nairobi to Nakuru, which is about 150 kilometers, but he arrived an hour late. In your own assessment, is it that the relationship between the two leaders has deteriorated that much, to such an extent that the Deputy President feels comfortable to show up an hour late at his boss's event? It's something we are yet to see, and I'm lucky enough to have seen 4 presidents in Kenya.
I think the war is total. And
it's an all-out war now.
It's an all-out war, and it's a bare knuckle. The gloves have been taken off the hands. You would ordinarily, if I were in the shoes of the Deputy President, I would have just taken my road. How long does it take from here to Nakuru?
It's 2 hours.
The moment you realize there's some shenanigans, just take the road, and you have your own escort. And it's not 2 hours, 1.5 hours you're there. Instead of waiting for 2 hours in Wilson Airport for you to either procure a plane of your own or to get the one which has been assigned to you, just take the road and be there. And of course, the signs are there. So I think it's both ways. He is also typically, you know what happens. Do you remember when Ruto would be outside there waiting for the door to be opened for him in Bomas, and Uhuru is inside with Raila Odinga, and he's told, no, you're not welcome here, and he still stands at the door there, basically, showing that, look, I'm his deputy, and until I get such an official communication, I will present myself to come and do my functions. So when you are number 2, even if number 1 picks up a fight with you, don't pick up a fight with him. Don't. And that's exactly what Ruto did. And in the process, he got the sympathy of the country. He got, all of us were pissed off. All of us were, when in a very childish manner, one side is Raila Odinga, and the other side is his deputy. And Uhuru is laughing with Raila Odinga, and that's very childish, extremely childish. Even 25-year-old with his good faculties and who has a degree from university would not do that kind of a things, even if he doesn't like the person. You show it, you coach it in some kind of a statesmanly way. And here is Ruto, pensive and very, dejected and literally, but staying put. When you are in a deputy position, you have to have a thick skin. They actually say, I remember one time way back when, Kabando will not remember this, but Andrei Gromyko, who later on became the deputy I can't remember, one of the Russian presidents in those days, so secretary. Andrei Gromyko, they said, is somebody who can sit on a block of ice with his pants down, so ordered, and still feign a smile. Which means, as long as the boss wants it this way, you stay like that. Lyndon Ben Johnson was so humiliated by not just Jeff Kennedy, but by his brother Bobby Kennedy, because the de facto deputy vice president was Bobby Kennedy. But Lyndon was there. When he's told to go to a certain trip, he goes. When he has to come back, he comes back. What happens? Jeff Kennedy goes bumped off. He's killed, assassinated.
Then he's elevated to
He becomes the president. He's sworn in the plane. And you can imagine the sense of shame on Jacqueline Bovia and Bobby Kennedy and all those people who really used to take him like trash in that. And that's it. And he became one of the best presidents in the U.S. history, particularly when it comes to civil rights, legislations. Okay. He is the one who really he was a redneck initially, serious racist from down south. But when he came in and he made up his mind, this is wrong, he had the guts and what do you call the courage to move on with all those legislations. By the way, Jeff Kennedy was what Biden is to the black people right now. Go to their places, pretend to be one of them. But the reality of the matter is the Democrats and these liberals, so-called liberals, are the ones who would never achieve anything. The extreme redneck, right-wing conservatives, when you agree on something, they uphold that agreement.
Okay.
But then what I'm basically trying to tell you is that when you're number two, and it's a bare knuckle thing, don't take the war. You see, right now...
Was it wrong for the deputy president to show up an hour late?
Very wrong, extremely wrong. And it doesn't help him.
Despite his own concerns?
It doesn't help him. He can be humiliated in any way. He can have issues, but he's fighting back.
Okay.
And that, I think, is wrong. You don't fight back. Why are you fighting back?
Okay.
The executive is the president.
Bwana Kabando, what is your take on that issue?
I largely do concur with Farah's observations. This scenario of fights in the presidency isn't healthy for a country. My take is that it is not about public interest. It is not. When it is about public interest, we should know. And in a country, the presidency belongs to the president. So there was Ronald Reagan. For the entire term of 8 years, his vice president was George Bush Sr. But it is not until George Bush Sr. Took over, succeeded Reagan for his one term before he was terminated by the governor from Kansas, Bill Clinton. The presidency was about Reagan. We remember George Bush for his term of 4 years. Then the Clinton administration is Clinton administration. Yet the more maybe equally endowed intellectual, corporate and leadership is a man from Tennessee called Al Gore, the Nobel Peace winner, the man of climate change and environment. But he was a vice president who lost to George Bush Jr. in the year 2000. So we remember Clinton administration, not Al Gore administration. We don't remember Kenyatta administration, Kenyatta Jomo, as a Moi administration. We remember Moi for the 24 years.
Yes.
Kibaki was a vice president for 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
And almost lifetime vice president. We don't. You know, who remembers there was even a vice president called Dr. Josephat Karanja, a first in every class and in every occupation, the pioneer vice chancellor of the University of Nairobi, and the first to occupy
at a very young age, tender age,
29, and also the first to occupy the Court of St. James in London as the first High Commissioner. We remember him as his time as High Commissioner and his time as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi.
Not as Vice President.
Not as Vice President. You know, in Nigeria, we had the Atiko moment. And Tiko brought a lot he brought a lot of issues, and you know, and he was popular, he charismatic, too much money, a lot of it. But remember, in the last election, he was being perceived to be a Ruto, so he'll come with that momentum. It didn't happen. He lost. He lost. The war between President Ruto and Deputy Rigathi, in my own opinion, very considered, and I say this with a bit of research, politics, has nothing to do with the deteriorating education crisis in universities, or the squatters who are yet to be settled, or the delays in disbursement of the devolution money, or something to do with the problems of security in Lamu or other areas, or the collapse of the health sector. It has everything to do with their fight. The other side of it is, should the deputy president have announced it? No. You know?
Announced the reason of the fight?
Look at Mwai Kibaki. From primary school to Makerere to London School to wherever, even the World Bank wanted him to be a president of it. And Jomo said, you stay here, you know, manage the economy here. But in the 10 years he was a vice president for Daniel Moi, Kibaki retreated to Odhaya, and he spent all his time in the village doing things in Odhaya, making Odhaya have the best schools to date in every village, you know. He retreated, he never answered back to his boss. So what I would say, if the kitchen gets very hot, kindly get out. You can call it joint ticket. Because look at the principle of Jaramogi, Adonija, Jaramogi, Oginga Odinga.
With Kenyatta.
When the kitchen got very hot and tribalism was being anchored in Kanu, in the 1966 Limuru Conference, Jaramogi, Oginga Odinga gave a very memorable speech, which you can get it on YouTube. And he said, I cannot continue earning public money when I am not serving. And this is not what we started. So Jaramogi resigned. And they founded his party, KPU, which won a number of seats thereafter. And he resided with a Kenyatta fellow detainee for 7 years, Bilda Kagia from Muranga. The politics of principle. Even Kibaki resigned on Christmas Day, 1991, from Mombasa. Even Nyachai resigned as a minister when he was being shuffled around. People like Masida Muliro left government. Raila Odinga resigned as an MP for Langata when he could not agree with his chairman, the late Vice President Wamalwa Kijana in Ford, Kenya, and he founded his party. I think we should have politics of conscience, politics of principle, where ethics and character determine your actions. We had a very notorious relationship between President Uhuru and his deputy. Ruto may have played the smart politics. But you know, just the last point. Ruto said, almost on oath, everywhere, that he will not subject his deputy to humiliation. And they made those vows that you never, whatever. Just as we may critique regarding these reactions. Now, the question people are asking, when you are dispersing one person to Machakos, another to Laikipia, another to Nyeri, another to some other part of the country, you can see the war, the response against Rigath's complaints is very orchestrated. I think this country deserves the energies of these cabinet secretaries, of these parliamentarians, about issues that are very egalitarian, that which affected vast majority of people, public interest, for equity and prosperity. They are wasting our time with their petty fights.
Interesting, and listening to the two gentlemen, it's like a class in history. And we do appreciate that a lot. Allow me to welcome onto the set Titus Lote MP Kachiliba. Karibu sana Bwana Lote. And we were just discussing some of the big political issues, but I want us to move on to something else that has a lot to do with the relationships between the top two leaders of this country. Now we're seeing the results of a strained relationship between the retired president and his deputy back then. But now the president. Uhuru turns to God in Ruto money fight is a big headline on the front page of the Standard. Where is Uhuru's 1.1 billion shilling funding is a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. On Taifa Leo, Uhuru alia kuteswa na serikali. On People Daily, just respect me, Uhuru tells Ruto. This is the biggest story that everyone is talking about this morning. We cannot ignore it. It's on all the dailies. We've just been talking about the strained relationship between the president and his deputy. It would appear this is an extension of the same, that a strained relationship between the number one and number two, even in retirement, still persists. From that perspective, and let's give Bwana Lote an opportunity to chime in into this. What is your take on this? What is playing out on the front pages of the dailies today?
Good morning and thank you. I want to greet all Kenyans who are listening to us today, this morning, and also to say that our nation is unfolding in terms of what is going on every single day. And what we're seeing yesterday, and this has actually been coming, that Uhuru's office is not funded. Yet the Constitution provides for funding of all ex-presidents until the time when God asks them to leave us. But as long as they are there, every of our president retired is supposed to be accorded funding and respect that is required for an head of state. For me, I will not say anything about this because these are just allegations that are said by the former president through his state spokespersons. And there was a refutation and also the contrary opinion that came from State House. So for me, I will not say it is there or not there because the information that is coming is contradicting. The one that is coming from State House says that the president is funded and that he's been given an office and that he's rejected that office. So he cannot even utilize the office that has been given to him by the state. And yet on the other side, the retired president says that he is not funded. So for me, I'll say it is neither here or there until when facts come to fore.
Okay, and perhaps they may differ a lot on who's saying what when, but my biggest concern is on the relationship between these top leaders going forward.
Look. When you retire as a president, go home. Go do your own philanthropy. Take a break from society. You cannot be an active player in the politics every single day out there, fighting the incumbent who is in there right that time, and expect there will be no repercussions because the Constitution has guaranteed me this. The Constitution did not put a figure on those things. The Constitution has done it in a manner that essentially, in my opinion, is very contestable. Why would you have to fund a retired president with 500 million Kenya shillings a year? You see what I mean? And by the way, even that time, when you are entitled to, there was an issue. The former Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, the pension of and other benefits of Raila Odinga, and the issue was, have they retired? You see what I mean? Have they retired? If they are not retired and they're active politics, they're still fighting for a seat, then an issue comes up. Then, of course, thank God, later on it was determined in the manner that wait until that person runs for an office. And then, of course, you can, if that person succeeds in getting that office, that special benefits that went with the old office that person held can then be discontinued. You know what I mean? Otherwise, we're going to have a chaos here. You know what I mean? I mean, Mudavadi is entitled to what do you call a pension as a former vice president.
Vice president, yeah.
And he was a vice president for 2 months. It's 2 months, yes.
2 months.
Yeah, but if he's running for the presidency, he's a young politician, still running, he's not in retirement, then why would that pension come out, in my opinion?
Yet it's the same parliament that passed these provisions.
The parliament, you see, sometimes, let me tell you one thing. Sometimes, I like one cardinal principle that I've always subscribed to myself. You can only legislate as a politician on the benefits of a politician if it's going to take effect from the next parliament. If you're not going to become a direct beneficiary yourself. For example, you don't go into parliament and then say, okay, let's give more allowances to the members of parliament, and it takes effect immediately. It's like telling somebody how much is enough for you. He will tell you everything. But if he knows that he might not be in parliament next time, you get my point? Then, of course, he's going to be very cautious. You do it very, very, very well. You come back to your senses, because your what you call rifle can be the member of parliament for the constituency. So then you get very sensible. So there's a lot of those things, in my opinion, that I think we need to look back at.
My biggest concern now is in the trend that we've seen, even the relationship between the president and his deputy now is a bit strained. We saw that in the last administration. And going forward, probably if nothing changes, this could be a trend. If at all we have instances where we have continued strained relations between a president and his predecessor or his successor, that in itself portends quite a lot of problems for us, Bwana Kabando.
This question is pertinent to the extent that it is about working of institutions and the rule of law and the constitution. To that extent, it is important for those who may know or who may be afflicted, those who are grieved, to raise a concern. I watched the entire interview on YouTube, of course, when I was easing at home in the evening of the spokesman's, Uhuru spokesman's conference. You know, they are employees speak. Mm-hmm. So they have not been facilitated, okay. Then there was a counter from the government spokesman. Now, it is just a perpetuation of the problems that were there. When a country is working well, and let me go back to the very question of corruption. If the country is working very well, it is very stable, and you feel no blemish. You have no issue with anybody when you become president, and you have no issue with anybody when you are not president. Are there presidencies? Yes, there are. There are instances in the past where a vice president has resigned and retired and led a very quiet, illustrious life. Completely. The late Mulumbi, he was barely a vice president for 1 year. But the kind of things he did in retirement, in artifacts, in history. Of course, we know the story of his lad now in Narok, grabbed by the current politicians who are still around here. But the illustration is that the countries that we sometimes we give the excuse, Kenya is a young economy, a young democracy and all that, but countries that are our age, like Tanzania, have you ever had any problem with the retired presidents? Or even,
we've seen the problems in Zambia, for example, where successive regimes or administrations have gone back to try and punish.
Look at the transition between the founding president, the man of the cloth, Kauda suit, and white handkerchief, with the Freddy Shiruba, who came evangelical, even led very loud, inspiring prayers in a stadium. But barely 1 year into office, himself and his family, all in scandals and everything. It's a question of stability of governance and integrity. But that said, I think we should be careful. For instance, when you mention the founding first lady, that her security has not been reinstated. To me, that's a bit petty for the government. Leave that aside. You can battle. I don't want to comment very much about Uhuru and Ruto. I actually would not want to do that.
Does it worry you that we see a trend that, because the deputy president's position means that he has a very high chance of ascending to the top office, given the politics at play. Does it concern you that this kind of trend, if it continues, then we will have more of this, more such headlines going forward, even in 2032? That a new administration will seek to punish the previous one?
You know, I think we are giving the example of a deputy president because of what Ruto did. Ruto is a different ballgame. You disagree with him, you dismiss him, but we all agree, even me who has never supported him, that's a very brilliant guy, he's very energetic, he's a go-getter. The method and the style may be contestable, perhaps even unethical, but he's a different person. The person of Mwai Kibaki could have been president at even 30. Okay? People knew that that's why he was fished by Jaramogi to come here. Daniel Moi suffered what you call sympathy ground, but he quietly captivated with the assistance of Charles Jonjo, then the all-powerful Attorney General, a place to come. So what is important today is to observe the law, implement the law, so that there are no contestations about things that are supposed to be implemented and observed. On this one, I'm saying we have had Uhuru's office has spoken. The gracious lady, Kenzadena, has always struck me as a humble person and a non-controversial and likable. She is very amiable, I would say, decent and beautiful and presentable. I don't think she was there to espouse lies. Isaac Mwaura is my friend. And he is my friend to the extent that when he was decamping from ODM to go and contest Ruto on Jubilee ticket, it is me who was with him that very day, asking him not to insult Raila Odinga, and later having a chance of photo at Fairview Hotel with Dr. William Mutunga, former CJ, also our mutual friend. And even asking Mwaura. And I'm saying on the STV, please, for what Raila has given you for 10 years, 5 years in his office working as an advisor when Raila was Prime Minister, 5 years as a nominated member of Parliament, whatever. Please never say bad things about Raila. I'm saying this on TV because I said it to him, and even I drafted the statement he gave after leaving ODM in order to go to Jubilee to be elected. I think Isaac Mwaura, my friend, as a government spokesman, should fit very well as a new DA spokesman rather than non-government. This is a place where you need even to restrain a bit.
Okay. All right.
In any case, remember, I cannot fight for her. He was my chairman or whatever. There is something that you do with people who have worked with you before. Uhuru made Isaac Mwaura a senator for 5 years. 5 years. But remember the speech he gave there in Kwale about the Kenyatta family. It was too personal, it was acidic, it was ungrateful, it was malicious and vindictive, even tendentious. And therefore, whatever he may say today about Uhuru Kenyatta, we'll go back to his speech in Kwale when he was decamping to Ruto's side. We'll go back to his speech in Roiro, attacking the family of Kenyatta. Attack the issues. Wachana na familia.
Okay.
He should desist on this one. He has no objectivity.
You want to add something?
Well, I wanted to add something. In terms of the budgets that is allocated to the former president, there's no figure that is stipulated by the Constitution or by the law. This is appropriated by Parliament. And you can already see Parliament have actually been allocating money. 600 billion, 2022, 23, 500 billion. And then I've also gone up. I think let us be realistic to even what Kenyans said yesterday. Kenyans were questioned yesterday. Mixed reactions came when it was noted that the former president was complaining that his office is not funded. One of the things that we need to note is not every budget that has gone through Parliament is funded. Budgets are aspirations. We always aspire this year to spend 4.1 trillion Kenya shillings. But then as we continue, we realize that we fall short. And when we fall short, we look at the fat within our budgets and we cut. And if you look at what Kenyans said yesterday, many of the Kenyans complained why the former president was allocated money when there are other sectors of the economy that are suffering. So I think basically what the government is doing is trying to look at where is fat. Do we fund a road that goes to a farm, or do we fund the president's luxury, the former president's luxury?
Okay.
The other thing that we also need to look at when we are discussing this is let us look at the establishments that are already there. The former president Kibaki, the late former president Kibaki, was allocated an office. He never complained and he lived in that office. That office, a rent is being paid. So what Uhuru has done is he has rejected an office that is established, that a rent is currently being paid, and he wants to move to another one. So amongst the budgets that we are talking about, that they are rejecting, that they have not been given, is a budget that an office is already being paid. So what he's saying is rejecting completely that there is no money that has been allocated, and yet state is paying for an office that he has rejected to use. He wants to use a private resident that is very close to State House, and that this private residence needs to be evaluated, and that he needs to be paid rent on an office that he owns as an home. So basically what Kenyans are asking is, when we don't have money like now, should we have money? I will not have an issue for Uhuru to be funded to 1.1 billion. But if we don't have money, let us look at the critical aspects of our economy and fund. And Uhuru should be benevolent enough to say, because this country is struggling, let me utilize resources that have been given to me by God and not tax Kenyans for that.
And that's a conversation we now want to get into, the budget making process, because you say Parliament does this, makes allocations that are not going necessarily to be funded, or funded depending on how much money we have. This week is a budget week. A lot has been said. A lot of public sentiments have been shared, and yesterday we had the very last session at the KICC, where members of the public were given an opportunity to vent and ventilate on a lot of these issues before the National Assembly's Committee on Finance and National Planning. And we do have some of the sentiments shared by many Kenyans on some of the specific tax proposals. Let's hear some of their sentiments, then we'll come back and discuss this.
The new tax will have an adverse effect on the insurance industry, including a high risk of job losses. The sector employs over 15,000 people in Kenya. That is according to KNBS.
If we have more chicks, it will mean that the consumer, the farmer, or the growers will have the day-old chicks at a lesser price.
Let us ensure that we keep these children at school, because some of them, they come because of this piece of bread. So I want to urge you, Bwana Chair and your committee, tafadhali, hii kitu ni ya muhimu sana.
Now we embrace bread. And if you're a food scientist and you know how bread is made, I can tell you 90% of the nutrients are taken out. If you go to Sarit Center, we have health food stores. They sell those products. Leave you the white flour that you consume, and you say that's the basic food. So I propose, or I approve, that the tax on bread will be even 20% or 30%.
Kenya is undergoing an economic transformation, and this calls for a lot of sacrifice from everybody, likened to the time our parents fought for our independence.
We want to tell you, go and greet Mr. President and tell him he have our support and Kenya is good. I believe right now as we speak, the high cost of living that have been an issue to many people, the price of unga, right now we can have a decent meal.
All right, those are just some sentiments shared by many Kenyans who got a chance, an opportunity to address the National Assembly Committee on Finance and Planning on their views about the Finance Bill 2024 and some of the provisions therein. And gentlemen, there's been notable progression and at least better comprehension when it comes to matters budget making this time round as compared to previous years. Last year, yes, we witnessed quite some robust debate on the Finance Bill of 2023, which was eventually enacted into law. We are seeing even more involvement this time round. Generally, and a survey was conducted last week, and it showed that a majority of Kenyans now have a better understanding of the budget-making process, which is something positive. And many more are willing to come out and explain their views and share the same. But the concern is that this is simply a formality, and rarely are these views taken into account by the committees of the National Assembly. That we may talk a lot about these things, but when it comes to the House, you as an MP for Dadaab, you know how the voting goes. There was a PG meeting for Kenya Kwanza earlier this week, and it will go a certain way. Are you confident that public participation is actually being used consequentially?
You see, why do you run for a political office? Why do you run to become the president of this country? Because then you have certain authority and power for you to run the country's finances and economy in the manner you want to run. That's why the debate on who becomes the president is all about economics. So then you don't surrender that to anybody else.
Even to the people who are...
Yeah, yes. You get the opinion. People don't run a country. In any case, you have 5-6 people who are coming to a public participation to give a very passionate position on something. Who tells you that's the people? You see, this mistaken thing on people have the right. Yeah, the sovereignty or the sovereign powers in this country rests with the people, but they only exercise it once.
Bwana Kabando totally disagrees.
No. The sovereign authority lies with the people. They exercise it once in determining who is going to be running the country for them. So it's transferred. Until again an issue comes that needs a referendum or it needs a popular, and those things are already spelled out in the Constitution. The areas that you must have a referendum, that the people must make the choice.
Yet public participation is provided for in law.
The public participation is provided for in law, but that is basically, you listen to the people.
And just listening to them.
No. Let me tell you how statecraft government works. Government does not work like a debating club in a university or a high school. Mm-hmm. The government works because there are people who control the instrument of authority. Mm-hmm. And those people are given that mandate by the people, by the masses. And let me just finish. To be told that this budget is going to be made by the masses because 20 or 30 or 50 people have come in to give their opinion on public participation and you say the people have spoken. And the government has got to do that. No, the government will listen, they'll take what they want, they leave out what they don't want. Mm-hmm. That's why they're given the mandate. And then at the end of their 5-year period, you then talk to them and see, okay, we have delivered on so much. Mm-hmm. Where have you seen in this world, where have you seen a functioning, developed democracy? Where people come
to the people.
Yes, the way we are doing right now. They have town halls in the US. But who listens to town halls in the US and puts that into the running of the government?
Please come into this conversation. I'm finding it difficult for a member of the National Assembly to say that public participation is not meaningful.
It is. It's meaningful to the extent to which you try and get the feelings of the people.
Just the feelings.
The feelings of the people. And then you accommodate what you want to accommodate and what you think is, possible to accommodate. And then you proceed on.
Bwana Kabando.
My senior, Farah Maalim, is being cunning. He's just being funny. I actually don't think that he means what he says for the first time, because he's a very serious man, a man from Nagdera. The only opposition MP from northern Kenya in 1982, a pioneer in his own right, and then power of impeccable credentials.
Thank you.
But momentarily, he is losing his parliamentary sanity. Because, with all due respect, the Constitution is about the people. We the people.
We have a copy of the Constitution.
We the people. Okay, Farah, the Constitution you have it. You are deputy speaker.
Yes, we the people.
And even last week I saw you in the chair.
Yes.
I follow you, sir.
Yes.
So, we are the people. The preamble is about the people. It's about the national values.
Yes.
We make laws so that those laws are observed. Last evening, I did my usual tweet about the abrogation or violation of the law that you made in Parliament. You are out, I think, that time. About the conduct of public at the state officers, and particularly on state officers, the Public Officers Ethics Act. And my argument is that the kind of things we are seeing state officers doing, carrying money in bags, money bags, money that is not audited, is not accounted for, donating it, going to say, you, Pastor, you have 300,000 shillings from the Deputy President, you have 1 million from the President, you have another from a minister. And these are guys you have worked with. Okay, politically they may be senior in a bureaucracy now, but they are your juniors. They don't come to political experience and all that. The law is there to be observed. You see, we don't overpraise Kibaki. And by the way, Kibaki had a good liking for Farah. Even one time when searching for Farah, and I came to know about it because I was consulting for them, so that he comes to becomes a minister in his government. Earlier.
Yes.
And later he became, of course, a deputy speaker under the Grand Coalition. You know, for the entire 10 years Mwai Kibaki was a president, a man of means, man, the longest serving member of parliament since independence to his retirement in 2013. You didn't see him carrying money bags when he was a president. Not that he did not have money to donate, but he had a law to observe. You didn't see Kibaki on chopper from village to village, speaking vernacular. As an MP in Mukurweini, in the 10th parliament, and a neighbor to Odhaya, and the MP for Kibaki's spouse, family, Lucy, who came from Ukraine. Even when you had meetings, and Kibaki would not have a meeting with just one group, either it's regional or it's national. Even in Parliament, you would call our meeting not a State House. Farah was there. He would call us at KICC, a public forum. Kibaki will not speak in vernacular as a president. Only one day I told him in vernacular, go say hi to my toe. And she said, that's the only one I heard from Kibaki. One time he passed the room Ukuroini, and I spoke in vernacular. Getawarege remembers this, of the nation. And the way he commented, he said, tuongea Kiswahili, and it was in Mukurweini town. So the question of public hearing is in law. It needs good people with good manners and maturity, a political hygiene that is acceptable in order to do it. It is contestable and unforgivable for any legislator. Least of all, Deputy Speaker Emeritus, to say that Kenya, people don't lead. There is a purpose why it was put, and I think Mr. Leto, from the famous Kachelimba of Pagisius, it says that when you appropriate the budget, it is something that you're anchoring to be followed. And therefore, the law is put, the constitution is put. Kenya is not an autocracy, neither a theocracy, where you go say, we'll appoint these people because they belong to the Muslim faith, the Christian faith, or they are Jews, or they are Gentiles. No, it is not an autocracy where you say, you people can go and talk. For instance, over 500 corporations, including, surprisingly, Safaricom, where government has shares, and where even the leaders of this country have invested heavily. Kenya Association Manufacturers, we say last week here, we were here, even Ice Park, even the Law Society. Are you telling me really, seriously, that in this country, you could have all these groups coming because the law has invited them and allowed them to submit what needs to be done in the villages, in the county hearings? And we said last week that one of the greatest weaknesses we have is that we complain from our leafy estates as we sip wine and camel milk and whiskey about what is not being done in our villages. But when the MCA or the county government or the Department of County Government is holding public hearings, we don't want to go there, but we want the road to be connected with Manam or a pipe to be repaired to our homesteads. Public hearing is an obligation. And the submissions done by the public are supposed to be adhered to, although not absolutely.
Yes.
But you cannot implement a law.
Taken into account.
You cannot implement a law that people have said absolutely no and have rejected because you are a custodian of public interest and you put the law in order to serve the people. You should not be all-knowing president. Unless you are megalomania or a dictator.
But Lote, do you agree with your colleague in the National Assembly that public participation is merely to get feelings, not really to take the views
well, I think if I got my colleague Farah Maalim well, he actually alludes to the fact that when governments are coming into being, they come with an aspiration. They actually have a manifesto. They have what they want to do for the people. And so, by them listening to the public, they want to see that the public is resonating with their manifesto because they were elected based on that. And so what he's trying to say is if the public is actually saying something that is completely different from what they promised, then the government will listen, but they will still want to move with their manifesto because the reason why governments are elected into being is because they promised to do things. For example, when the president, William Ruto, and his administration was coming into being, they promised affordable housing. And you remember in the last finance bill, 2022-23, this was a very hot topic. And people say they are rejecting that. And yet, when the president was moving around this country to campaign in what we call the economic town halls meeting, they actually talked about ensuring that after 5 years, Kenyans will have affordable housing. And so if the president listened then, if the government listened then completely and threw away what they had aspired to the people, 5 years after, they were going to be asked what they did.
Okay.
And they were going to be told they did not say the truth. Now, let me come to a little bit of that again. This is a bill. This bill that is actually called the National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024. It was read for the first time on the 13th of May, 2024. And then it went out to the public for hearing. We actually saw it yesterday, people giving their aspirations. I will not say that the government is completely blind or doesn't listen to the people. If you can remember the housing levy bill last year, it started with a levy, and the public, from public hearing, said, no, we don't want it to be a levy, let it be a tax. And you remember that now we are not implementing a levy, we are implementing a tax. It started with a 3%, and the public made a lot of noise. And based on the public participation, it was brought down to 1.5. So we cannot say that the public is not listened to, but the public is listened to the extent that they are resonating with the manifesto and the aspirations of the government.
Hold that thought there. Let's take a short break. We'll be back to continue this conversation.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni Ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way.
Thank you so much for watching. This is the Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indemulia. Asanteni sana for those people who are watching us right now. And some of them, Mike Nyakwar Oryang says, good morning, niko ndani kutoka Siaya. Kenyatta Natala, nawapatia vizuri. Luanda na Matala, Malava. Manu Origino, good morning from Jordan, Bungoma. And streaming live from Kitale, Birunda, that's Willie Bazu. And pamoja kutoka Gaturi, Mary Hector. Aha. Thank you so much for keeping it TV47 and for watching Morning Cafe. Good morning from Vihiga, Kidiga D in Chelsea, and Jared wa Matioli, locked in Outer Luanda. A lot of viewers from the western part of this country watching us this morning. I'm still in studio with the MP for Dadaab, Faramalim, Kabando wa Kabando, former MP Mokoroine, and Titus Lote, MP Kachiliba. We're looking at the budget making process, and we're just examining the consequentiality of public participation.
Yeah.
Yes, because it has been a thorny issue. And it's been provided for in the law. Would it be okay if we did away with these sessions that we're having for people to come and talk to the members? Yes, because according to you, Bwana Faramali,
no. Listen. That is the sense of democracy itself. Town hall meetings.
Just for the sake of it.
Hang on a minute. You take what you have to take from it as a government, and you leave what you have to do. You think fits in with your manifesto. Let me give you just a simple example. Have you seen the demonstrations asking for ceasefire now in Gaza in the US and in Western capitals?
Yes.
Some of them have as much as 1 million people who are coming out. Millions and millions of people have come out all over the world asking for ceasefire now. Asking for America stop supplying bombs. Biden is supplying all the bombs that Netanyahu needs. You get my point?
Is that the right way?
No. I'm just telling you how democracy works. I'm talking about statecraft. I'm talking about statecraft.
Totally disregards the view of the people.
When they want, they disregard. You see, it's not the rule. It's not a thumb rule. And also an election year right now will be a bit risky for them. But the reality of the matter is that, look, I was in parliament myself under the old constitution and the old dispensation where it doesn't matter how much outrage you express or demonstrate on the floor of the House against the budget, the best you could do was to take £1 away from a certain line item, an allocation. That's the best you could do. We could not reject the budget. I'm talking about the previous parliament. We were using the Westminster.
The old constitution.
Old constitution, Westminster system, which is practiced in the UK even now. The government can be a serious minority in the UK, but nobody can reject the thing. You see, it's called the House of Commons. If you want to go back to the very origin and the history of the genesis of what's called a parliament, it was coming from the nobility, the royalty, taxing the commons, or the commoners for that matter. And the commoners said, no taxation without representation, at least so that they could participate and partake in the process of determining how much they're going to be taxed, to take it to the big bosses up there. I'm talking about the nobility. Progressively, as you continue, ours has shifted just like the US has shifted. Because the US right now, the majority party in the Congress is the one which determines how much can be taken away from the government today. But the budget is prepared by the administration of Biden. It doesn't matter whether he has a minority in the House. You get my point? Or not. And still there's going to be a bit of a trade-off, and they agree on that. So the government is the government. You can listen to all the public discussions. You can listen to all that. It's a development of democracy itself, but it's not cast in stone that whatever the public says is what the government has got to follow.
Wow.
You can't, and let me just explain to you. Let me just explain to you. I mean, Kenyans need to study these things and understand exactly how these things work.
We do.
And sometimes you hear them tell him, oh, this member of parliament has not done anything, he has not brought us roads. Members of parliament don't make roads. They just make laws, and they represent and they scrutinize the government. It's the government of the day that determines where development has got to go. We
should not put so much premium on the views we give members of
No. Put the premiums. And this is, you see, democracy is not an end in itself. It's not a destination that you've reached. It's a journey. It's a very serious journey, a very long journey. Let me just give you an example. For example, I am today I formed the government. I ran for the presidency and I formed the government, and my party is called Kabando Kabando.
Unlikely.
And then my opponent, my brother from Kachiliba, mobilizes all the people. So everybody who comes to the public participation are people who basically represent his idea of how this country's economy should be run. And he was my opponent. And you think because they have talked all the things they wanted to talk, I will depart from my manifesto and implement his manifesto.
But some of the groups that have
let me just finish.
Some of them are not really partisan.
No. Whatever it is,
the Kenya Bankers Association and all this, they're not partisan.
Whatever it is, this is opinions that need ordinarily to be taken into consideration. But there is no rule requiring you must take them into consideration. Not in the Constitution, not in any piece of legislation. not in any practice anywhere. You listen to them, and whatever you think is good for the country and good for you and good everything else, and it meets into your own things. You see, Reagan came to power, and he came with something called Reaganomics. I don't know if you remember that. They call it the voodoo, what do you call economy?
Trickle down.
And the trickle down, what do you call things itself. And basically, he was there. He was the president, and was elected for 2 terms. And he stayed in that place for the longest for as long as the Constitution allowed him to stay. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the people in office today have no business implementing the manifestos of the people who oppose them, like Farah Mali, because I oppose them. You know what I mean? I was on the other side. I don't have. I can't force them.
But this taking it in a partisan manner that every opinion given on this budget is from a partisan perspective.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who is giving you. You look at it and you choose and pick. You cherry pick.
Okay.
Because you have been given the authority, you have been given the mandate to run this country and its economics and its security sector and everything. And people, the best that the opposition can do is to sit back and say, the economics policy is a failure. You can see it. Their security policy is a failure. Now give us...
What quality does Parliament add to this budget-making process?
The quality that Parliament adds, and let me just finish. The quality that Parliament adds is that it's the one which passes this thing.
Just passing it.
By the way, this is a budget-making Parliament.
Because the feeling is that there should be a bit of scrutiny, even in some of the aspirations by Parliament. That probably sometimes you're overambitious, even in the budget-making process. Shouldn't Parliament come in and add some quality by reducing or stemming some overambitious whatever narratives?
You know, Farah is talking very much about democracy. We're on a journey. Those are excuses that Daniel Moi gave, and he was never part of that.
By the way,
now let me go on.
Just before he goes on, Kibaki was in a class of his own. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Kibaki was the best person I have seen in this continent when it comes to running a country.
Okay.
And me and him were close to him, both of us, in our own ways. And the man was just from outside this world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
I'm saying Farah is saying that democracy, we are still on a journey. It's just like when you said when Kenyans were obviously ready for multi-party democracy. They have always been. In any case, we became independent with multi-party democracy. And only from 1969 did we start proscribing opposition because we wanted to deal with the Jaramogi because of the Cold War, the Russia, Western world confrontations, and Kenya becoming a satellite state. You know, and even now we and now we are likely. You see the decisions that are being made on Haiti. We are likely to become a puppet of imperialism, and this is a case that will be studied for many years to come. In America, that he is referring to, is called the greatest democracy. I don't think America is the greatest democracy. I think India is the greatest democracy in terms of numbers and even ideology of political parties. I know Modi now, the Prime Minister, is facing some opposition, but you can track.
Just got re-elected for a third term.
You can track that. But definitely, I had the opportunity to do a paper based on a lesson I was receiving in a certain school there, challenges on Americans' democracy. And part of the challenges include the electoral system. They include, the proportional representation and all that, which is largely affected because they have a very accurate review of boundaries. But listening to people, if you go to America today, if you go to Vermont, they know they have Bernie Sanders, the independent senator who is aligned in the Senate to the Democratic Party. If you go to Massachusetts, they have Elizabeth Warren, who was an aspirant for the presidency. They know they have that voice. And the one called Zach Schumer, the senator for New York, now in his 70s, since he was 23 years, became a leader there. I mentioned the three on one issue that will lead to public hearing. They have been very consistent on writing off student loans, because student loans are a very big burden on American citizens. You can stay for many years working, earning a good salary, but because you attended many universities before starting to work, you have borrowed so much. Yes, American education is not that free, although they still give scholarships, including to Africans and other countries that benefit. Today, Joe Biden, one of the agendas he's trying to address is the question of student loans. And he has been writing off very many millions of dollars to ease the burden on that area. It means the voice of this man, who is very opposed to American imperialism, Bernie Sanders from the state of Vermont, and even Zach Schumer. The kind of things, if you go to his page, because I follow him closely, and I've had opportunity to be in a meeting where he spoke. He even spoke at my graduation in the State University of New York. I'm telling you, the kind of report he's giving almost every week on his Twitter handle, if you go there, you'll see he is giving an account of what he has achieved based on the needs of the people from New York by bringing resources and the money. There was another senator from New Hampshire, I don't remember the name, who was known for a lot of lobbying because New Hampshire had a special need on education, and they did that. It's very, very important. Maybe what we should be saying here, the gentleman, the man from Kachilimba and the man from Dabab, Lagdera, would be saying is that perhaps the regime is bereft of ideology, and therefore, because we did not elect it on pure ideology, watch a Mabwe Hustler Nation, quite ideology, it was populism, many things are changing and met. And now, we are trying to do things at random, coerce parliament. If a public hearing was not important, members of parliament will not be bribed. I know none of them, not Leto, not Farah, can tell the public that there is no bribery or corruption in parliament. In toilets, in the chambers,
bribery to pass.
Bribery, you may not table empirical evidence here, but you all know what happens. Members of parliament are called. But
they're here to defend themselves.
But no, not them.
The integrity of the house.
Not them.
Yeah.
But Farah he is now in a Ruto administration. Okay, we had opportunity 08 to 2013 to be the Kebaki administration. I can face you today and tell you this, and I swear in the name of Almighty God, of Kirinyaga and of every shrine of every ethnicity or region in this world, that Mwai Kibaki, for his entire period of 10 years, never bribed a member of parliament with one shilling. I can tell you this. Even me coming from Yeri,
MPs were allowed to vote whichever they wanted.
Listen, Farah, I remember one day we were in someone at a place called KACC. Kibaki came and Raila came because Parliament was against certain things to do with the EACC. But you know what? Farah, you remember when you are doing the EACC thing?
Yes, yes.
You remember when you threw me out of Parliament?
Yes, yes.
And the last week you threw another member out of Parliament as a temporary speaker? Yes. You know, we won the case. I was there with Abdulkadir Mohammed from Madeira Central. Abdulkadir, senior counsel, eminent person. And as members of parliament, we resonated with what public was saying. And although government was trying to resist at hand, let me take you back just slightly to 1989. One day.
And our time is almost
one
up,
day,
unfortunately. Yeah.
One day, the MP for Kacheliba, he comes here on Mondays, I know.
The former MP.
Senator. No, I'm saying he was former MP, Pogisio.
Yes.
And the then MP, Kingpin, you call him, Lotondo, of West Korea. I'm telling you, one day they were made to sit outside a tent. And President Moi, like he had done with Isaiah Madenge, with the Kibaki seated there in 1988, the previous year, Mr. Pogisio and Mr. Lotondo were so humiliated, and then they were thrown out of parliament. All right. President Moi spoke, like the Farah is trying to speak here, authoritarian. However, later, Moi had to succumb to public interest of the Pokot people. He did not only, of course, Lotondo was expelled from Kanu and he was jailed, put in prison. Yeah. But Moi got too much pressure from Pokot people who border Uganda with the Karamojong there. He released him from jail and made him a cabinet minister. Pogisio did not only come back to parliament, after being expelled, he went to teach at the DStv. Okay. He did not only come back to parliament, But he rose to become not only a cabinet minister later, and also became a pioneer senator for West Pokot. Is to say, you can ignore public views today because you have the trappings of incumbency. It is the law. It is the constitution. It is there in order to lead and give prescriptions on good governance, accountability, and transparency. You can ignore it for your convenience and for your trappings of privilege. But in the end,
come back to bite you.
In the end, the rule of law and constitutionalism will prevail.
Okay. Parting short, because our time is...
My parting shot is, if we look at the way we actually structured our constitution, in the leadership of parliament, the chairman for the budget is always from the ruling class, from ruling party. The chairman for finance is from the ruling party. What does it tell you? It tells you that these are the people that are supposed to control the way the purse is resourced and the way the purse is expensed. It's no way that these people will just throw out all the aspirations of a government in terms of their manifesto to listen to the public. And I'll tell you, the government is there to protect the interest of the larger majority of the people in this country. If you listen to the public, the views of the public, those that you call the public, most of them are organized groups, like you actually say the Kenya Private Alliance, you say Kenya Bankers Association. They have their interest and they want to protect their interests, not necessarily the interests of the public. And so it is important and incumbent on the parliament to listen to the public, to listen to the views from everybody, but at the end of it all, to listen to the spirit of the majority of the public who might not even present any petition or any view to that public forum. And so when parliament sieves through, and now actually they finished yesterday, they're sieving through today and tomorrow we're going to vote on Thursday. They are actually trying to look at what is the spirit of Kenyans. Is it that we take interest of the matatu owners at the expense of our Kenyans? Or is it that we take interest of those people that are the insurance companies at the expense of Kenyans? So when finally we vote on the spirit of what all Kenyans have said, not verbally, not written, but that the spirit that comes out. So public hearing is important. Public hearing has also changed some dimension, but public hearing cannot change the decisions and the aspirations of a government that was voted based on a manifesto that needs to be.
And our time is totally over. Parting short in 30 seconds.
Yes. No. But look, politics is the art of possible. The art of possible. And democracy, although there are not two democratic dispensations that are twins anywhere in the world. Every democracy is different from the next democracy and the next democracy and the next democracy. Wherever they are, all over the world. So let's try and we go through these things. We go through elections. They're usually very long and they are very tedious and very costly and the rest of it. Once that's done, whoever comes into office, allow them to run their manifesto. You get my point? Take stock of what they do. As opposition, I'm in the opposition. Take stock of what they do. You get my point? Wherever they've gone wrong, tell Kenyans.
But allow them.
This is the alternative I have. This is alternative. This is alternative. There's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do. They have the numbers in parliament. You get my point? They have the numbers in parliament. That's why they're in the government, and they have their manifesto to implement and fulfill. And the Kenyans,
we're being thrown out of studio, unfortunately. 30 seconds only.
He has already given his...
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that the ruling executive also controls parliament. It will be good if there was a hung parliament or that the opposition had the majority. If these guys from Jubilee and other parties affiliated with Azimio did not come to the ruling, if Farah today was doing the Azimio that he came to, he will not be with it at all. There will be a little balance. What I can say, what we look forward to, is a scenario where the obscene allocations for both retired and current serving senior state officers in the budget will be a matter of public interest. And finally,
I agree with you.
It's a little disappointing that the intelligentsia, the academia, is not speaking on these matters. Today, Taifa Hall should be full with the Department of Political Science from the University of Nairobi, or going to Fogamano with the Public Law Institute to hear from student unions to hear from intellectuals about these matters of budget. The School of Government and the Lower Kabete School of Finance in and other public universities that study public finance should be now congregating.
Asante sana.
So we thank you very much for that.
Thank you sana. Kabando, former MP Mukurweini, Farah Maalim, MP Dadaab, and Titus Lote, MP Kachiliba. And as the Finance Bill 2024 approaches finalization, a clear and disturbing pattern is emerging. The views and concerns of Kenyans expressed during public participation sessions are at risk of being sidelined. You've heard the MPs. These sessions, mandated by the Constitution, are meant to be a cornerstone of our democratic process, ensuring that the public's voice informs legislative decisions, especially those as impactful as tax laws. As outlined in Chapter 1 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and reiterated in Articles 201, 2021 and 2032, the involvement of citizens in government decision-making is fundamental. The Public Finance Management Act of 2012 and the National Assembly's standing orders further underscore the necessity of integrating public input in financial legislation. To disregard these contributions is to undermine the very foundation of our governance system. Various industry stakeholders and ordinary Kenyans have voiced strong opposition to several proposed tax measures. If MPs choose to ignore the public's input and vote strictly along party lines, as seen in previous years, they will confirm the public's worst fears that these participation sessions are nothing more than a costly charade. What is the purpose of soliciting public opinion if it is to be dismissed out of hand? If public participation is to be meaningful, it must be reflected in the legislative process. The National Assembly has a duty to take the insights and objections raised by Kenyans seriously. As representatives of the Kenyan people, MPs must demonstrate that they value and respect the voices of their constituents. Ignoring public input on the Finance Bill 2024 would be a grave error, one that the National Assembly must avoid if it